here on your Wednesday. Well, Russia's attack on Ukraine worsens, but so does the attack on Kiwi wallets as the cost of living soars. So what is our government doing all about this? To have a Talanoa about it, we're honoured to be joined now by Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. With that, I say talo falava and welcome to the show.
Hello, Palava. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Prime Minister, of course, we want to get straight into it. You know, the topic at the moment is, of course, Kiwis are feeling the pinch, right, with living costs soaring. We've got inflation at 6%. Those petrol prices at about $3 per litre now. You know, families are spending thousands more on groceries per year. I would love to know, you know, what is the government planning to make living more affordable for our families?
You're absolutely right. Around the world, we're seeing these cost of living increases at the moment, and the economic recovery from COVID, that big spike in demand globally, supply constraints, all contributing. And you add to that the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the invasion by Russia into Ukraine, that is absolutely making our fuel prices worse. So all of these factors combined are making it tough for our families right now. We've been doing a range of things, and actually since we came into government, we've had a big focus on lifting people's incomes and easing the cost of living. And so things like increasing the minimum wage, which we've committed to doing again this year, and that lift takes into account those cost of living increases. We've also committed that in April, we'll increase the family tax credit. That will mean, for instance, on average, about an extra $20 a week for families. When you compare that to some of the other solutions we've heard from the opposition, they're talking more like $2 a week. So we are looking for things that make a meaningful impact. But we know times are hard, but at the same time, it is expected to be a spike. So not something that lasts for a long period of time.
Now, I know definitely you would know the stats, and, you know, when we sort of read through, even according to Ministry for Pacific People's 2020 snapshot report, right, of the medium for our Pacific families, you know, it sits at really $24,300 is what half of our Pacific people are earning, literally between $0 to $25,000 in income. So then you would really understand, right, that our families are feeling probably not just a pinch, but just a crush to their to their earnings and how they're trying to live. Any indication as to when we could possibly start to see costs going down or feel a little bit of relief? Yeah.
So of course, some of the things that we have been focused on is for making sure that for our lowest income earners, we've introduced things like the winter energy payment, which starts again soon and helps with those winter energy costs. We've brought in things like the Best Start payments, so our families with children between 1 and 3. We've put food in schools so that children in a lot of our schools in our low-income areas now are getting free lunches. We've also removed, for instance, the fees in many of our schools as well, so parents aren't having to pay those donations. All of those things to try and ease the pressure for families. But in terms of how long will we experience this spike for? Look, we do know that we've got a few more months where it's projected that inflation will be higher. And as I say, that's global. But then the prediction is that across the rest of the year, we should start to see it come away. We will keep looking for ways, though, to ease that cost of living pressure. The final thing, you'll see we just put out a study on what's going on in our supermarkets. We've been worried for some time that the cost of food in New Zealand is higher when you compare it to other countries we might compare ourselves to. The Commerce Commission released a report yesterday. It said, yes, New Zealanders are paying too much. So we've now got a set of things that I've recommended we do to try and see a decrease in the cost that people pay at our grocery stores as well.
With all due respect, though, Prime Minister, you know, we've seen reports where you sort of have refused to accept that this is the cost of living costs we are in a crisis. What then would it take, though, for you to label this a cost of living? You know what I mean? How bad does it get?
I'm not sure that coverage, I think, is being particularly fair. I've said that undeniably we're seeing an increase in the cost of living. We absolutely are, and you'll have heard everything I'm saying today accepts that. What I've disputed is whether or not this is going to be something that we're going to live with forever. I don't think that's the case, and many of our economists who are looking forward don't think so too, but it is here right now, and so we do need to try and find things that we can do right now to support people.
Sure. I would love to switch though to, of course, the sanctions that you have posed on Russia. Parliament expected to pass, right, under urgency, the Russia Sanctions bill. Once this passes though, what's the actual impact then for Russia?
Yeah, for us, it's about making sure we're moving with the international community. So even though we don't have a lot of Russian investment currently in New Zealand, or even necessarily predicted to come into New Zealand, what we want to make sure is that as the world places hefty sanctions on Russian banks, Russian investment, on oligarchs, so those who are seen as very influential in Russia and its regime, that we don't then see them looking for places where they can make investments or move assets in order to avoid sanctions. So we want to make sure we protect against that by moving really early alongside our international partners. So it's about being preemptive.
Now, of course, Immigration Minister Chris Fatfoy, he just announced the support for Ukrainian New Zealand visa holders.
Yeah.
Is the government sort of looking to extend these border exemptions for wider family members of Ukrainians in New Zealand?
Yeah, we haven't finished looking at all of the options yet. We wanted to move really quickly on those things we knew that we could do quickly. So just for those who are already here, if they've got a visa that's running out, the last thing we want to do is say that they have to return to their homeland in a state of conflict. So we immediately extended those visas. And what we've also done is said anyone who already has a visa but hasn't been able to come in because of our border restrictions, will allow them to come in immediately. We're now looking at wider things that we can do. But of course, we've already doubled our refugee quota so that there's space for us to be able to supporting those that the United Nations identifies as refugees.
Is there anything though that you need to consider before this can get the green light?
Yeah, so the thing that we just want to think about is of course, there's lots of family and lots of other areas where people have been seeking family reunification, just making sure that what we do considers other conflicts in the way that we've worked there, and make sure we're trying to be responsive but fair.
Right, absolutely. If you're tuning in, we're catching up with Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. Would love to now cross over to, of course, Tonga's recovery and rebuild. I suppose latest communication about the progress of recovery. Any updates on the current needs?
Yeah, well, I think as you will have seen that in the immediate aftermath, everyone rallying, we need to make sure that we continue to be there for that recovery. So a couple of areas where we've been working in support of the government. One is making sure that we're supporting water sanitation. So we've got some projects we're working on there. And the second is the vulnerability of communication. So there's some work that we're doing alongside Australia to help support a bit more resilience in telecommunication infrastructure in Tonga as well. There's other disaster response programs, but we're also doing really interesting things like supporting food security. So we've donated 1,500 kgs of vegetable seeds to support food security as well. So a range of things that we're doing as part of the recovery.
Nice. Prime Minister, would love to just quickly get this in because, of course, yesterday we were celebrating International Women's Day, and would love to know, how did you celebrate? And because of the theme, it's all about breaking the bias. I would say, what's something that you've been able to break the bias on since your journey being Prime Minister?
Well, actually, I noticed yesterday was a lot of fair support for the other women amongst ourselves within the Labour team. Lots of acknowledgement of one another on International Women's Day, and I'm very grateful for the women that I work amongst. We've had the largest portion of women in our Labour team that we've had, and they are some incredible wahine tour. So that was something that was special yesterday for us. I also had strangers send me flowers, which was really lovely. But in terms of breaking the bias, for me, every day it's about demonstrating to any girls out there who might be thinking about what they do in the future, that you can be your own kind of leader, even in the places like politics where you make an assumption that you have to lead in a particular way. I hope they see a diversity in leadership in this place now that perhaps we didn't see before.
Beautiful. And just any key messages that you'd love to leave with our listeners this morning, though?
Oh, just do take good care right now. We know it is tough. If it feels hard, it's because it is right now. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We've got the international impacts of that are affecting our everyday lives right now. It is tough, but there is also light. Our borders are reopening. We will come out the other side of this peak and things will start to feel a little more normal soon. But please look after yourselves in the meantime.
Absolutely. Look, Prime Minister, again, thank you so much for your time this morning. Look forward to catching up with you next month.
Ka kite.
No worries.